They never should have dug it up. It wasn't even supposed to be there. Deep in the barren deserts of Patagonia, where the winds scream louder than any living thing, a team of paleontologists uncovered something they couldn't explain, a fossil so strange, it made their seasoned field leader pause. And he never paused. It wasn't a dinosaur skeleton. Not a full one, anyway. It wasn't even the bone structure that was wrong. It was the way it was buried. Fossils don't arrange themselves like that. Fossils don't bend into perfect spirals. But this one did. Dr. Javier Morales, a man who had spent 35 years digging up ancient remains, looked at the coil of fossilized vertebrae twisting into itself like a serpent eating its own tail, and for the first time, he felt something watching back. It was supposed to be a sauropod fossil, yet it was shaped more like a trap. But they kept digging. Of course they did. The first night after the dig, their equipment started to fail. Radios crackled with static, even when they were turned off. Cameras clicked by themselves. The wind carried voices. But the team joked about it. Because that's what you do when you're scared but still want to believe in science. Until the digging team's youngest intern, Maria, didn't show up for breakfast. When they found her, she was standing barefoot at the excavation pit, staring at the spiral fossil. She wouldn't blink. She wouldn't speak. She just kept smiling. They rushed her back to camp, but Maria's smile didn't fade. Her eyes, once sharp with curiosity, were glazed over as if something far older than her had taken up residence inside. Dr. Morales tried to dismiss it as heat stroke, but no one else believed that. Not after what happened that night. At precisely 3:33 a.m., every tent zipper opened at once. No one was outside. The spiral fossil was glowing. It wasn't bright, it was subtle, like a pulse beneath the surface. A faint luminescence, swirling in a pattern that hypnotized anyone who looked for too long. One of the junior paleontologists, Diego, couldn't resist. He stood in front of the fossilized spiral, breathless, as his nose began to bleed. He didn't even notice. He just kept mumbling one phrase. "It's waking up." Dr. Morales had seen enough. By dawn, they packed up the camp. The fossil was too strange, too dangerous, but protocol demanded it be transported to their university's lab. It should have stayed buried.
The transport truck broke down an hour into the journey. No mechanical reason.
The engine had simply stopped existing. Wires melted, metal rusted instantly, as if centuries had passed in a blink. The fossil stayed untouched, resting in its crate. But every person near it reported the same thing. They could hear a heartbeat. Back at the university, strange phenomena escalated. Students fainted in hallways. Glass would shatter whenever anyone spoke the fossil's catalog number aloud. One professor vanished entirely during a lecture about ancient predators. They reviewed the security footage. He simply faded out of existence, frame by frame, like being erased. It was no longer a fossil. It was an anchor, a tether to something that was never meant to be unearthed. The university officially labeled it as a non-hazardous anomaly. But by then, the fossil had already claimed 3 lives. But it wasn't just deaths. It was the manner of them. One of the lab assistants, Clara, had been cataloging the spiral fossil when she started coughing uncontrollably.
Blood first.
Then teeth. One by one, as if her own body was rejecting her. Another, Professor Alvarez, was found in his office, except the room was locked from the inside. Every bone in his body had been twisted into a spiral, just like the fossil. Nobody could explain how.
Docteur. Moral wasn't a man of superstition.
But he started to realize this fossil wasn't the remains of a dead creature. It was a prison.
And the thing inside? It wanted out.
He begged the university to seal it, bury it again, burn it if they had to. But bureaucracy is slow, and the fossil was too valuable for science. They planned an exhibition, a public unveiling. The announcement went viral. The spiral fossil, unlocking prehistoric mysteries. Morales knew this wasn't a mystery to be solved. It was a warning to be heeded. But nobody listened. The night before the exhibit opened, the power grid in the entire city of San Miguel collapsed. Surveillance cameras in the university caught the last images of the fossil. It wasn't glowing anymore. It was breathing. By morning, the fossil was gone. The crate was there. The cameras never saw it move. It simply wasn't there anymore. But the claw marks on the walls told another story. They weren't scratches. They were spiral carvings. Dozens of them, leading out of the building. The spiral fossil had escaped, and it had learned how to leave messages. The fossil didn't just vanish. It left a trail. The first reports came in within 48 hours. A janitor at the university was found curled up in a storage closet, alive but unresponsive. His body twisted unnaturally, bones creaking with every breath, his fingernails clawed into the shape of spirals. Then, the city lights began to fail, section by section, but not randomly. The blackouts formed a pattern. From above, it was obvious. The power failures were mapping out a spiral across San Miguel. The spiral fossil hadn't just escaped. It was still buried. But now, it was burrowing through reality itself. Dr. Morales became a recluse. He barricaded himself in his apartment, obsessing over maps, diagrams, ancient texts. He found a disturbing pattern. This fossil had been found before. In 1847, an excavation in France unearthed a similar spiral structure. Weeks later, every person involved vanished. The dig site collapsed, leaving no trace. In 1933, a mining crew in Siberia discovered fossilized bones spiraled into a labyrinth pattern. That mine was sealed. The incident was covered up as an accident. Each time, the same events followed. Whispers in the wind. People twisting, both physically and mentally. And then vanishing. Morales pieced it together. These weren't fossils of a dead creature. They were fragments of something far older. An entity that wasn't alive or dead. It was trapped. Each fossil, a key. And humanity, in its arrogance, was unlocking it one dig at a time. The city wasn't just under attack. It was being rewritten. Dr. Morales knew his academic reputation was over. But his life? That was the least of his concerns now. He began contacting old colleagues, paleontologists, geologists, even folklorists. Some answered. Most didn't. But the few who did already knew. There was a forbidden archive, passed between certain scientists like an underground myth. They called it the Paleontology Black Ledger. A document that chronicled discoveries that never made it to public knowledge. Discoveries that weren't classified by governments, but silenced by survival instinct. In these records, there were mentions of spiral entities found across the world. Each time, the same progression unfolded.
Discovery. Obsession. Reality fracture. People disappear.
And always, there was a spiral pattern left behind. One entry stood out to Morales. It wasn't a dig site. It was a shipwreck. In 1912, a scientific expedition aboard the SS Vanguardia went missing in the Atlantic. Weeks later, the ship was found adrift. Empty. Except for a single spiral fossil resting in the captain's quarters. The ship's walls were scratched with spirals, and all logs ended with the same chilling phrase.
It's calling back to life.
Morales felt his stomach twist. He realized what they had unleashed wasn't local. It wasn't confined to their desert dig site. It was global. And now, with modern excavation and technology, the locks were breaking faster than ever. But it wasn't until Morales' own reflection blinked at him, before he did, that he understood. The spiral fossil wasn't a creature. It was a seed, planted across millennia.
Waiting for arrogant and to dig it out.
He had to warn the world. But time was unraveling. Literally. The screen flickers as Morales' face comes into view. His eyes are sunken. His hands tremble, not from fear, but because the bones beneath his skin are coiling slowly. He doesn't have much time. If you're watching this, I need you to listen carefully. This is not a curse. This is not some ancient superstition. This is physics, failing. The spiral fossil, it's not a fossil. It's not even alive.
It's a terre.
A fracture point in reality that's been patched over, sealed, locked for eons. But every time we dig one up, every time we put it in a lab or on display, we're not studying it. We're feeding it. Morales leans in. The room behind him begins to warp, walls bending in a slow spiral curve.
Object start to defy gravity.
I've traced the sites. There are more.
Siberia. Peru.
Under the sands of Egypt, even beneath the Atlantic Trench. And every one of them is humming. This isn't about what we've found. It's about what we've released. Suddenly, his reflection in the window moves before he does. It smiles.
Moral doesn't.
I don't know what's on the other side of this fracture. But it's not coming. It's already here. It's rewriting us.
My name is Dr. Carlos Moral.
And I have failed to stop this. He lifts his hand.
It's spiraled.
Fingers curled unnaturally, but he doesn't flinch. If you see spirals forming where they shouldn't be, on walls, on water, on your skin, you're already part of it.
The recording begin glitching. The waltz pulse like a heartbeat.
His final words are distorted but clear.
The spiral, remember you now.